My name is Elena, and tonight, as the soft glow of my lamp spreads across my quiet room, I feel the old memories rise gently inside me, asking to be spoken again. They live in me the way shadows live in late afternoon, never loud, never sharp, but always there, stretching long and touching everything around them. My story is not one of grand events or sudden miracles. It is a story of love found in small, ordinary moments, of heartbreak that came softly but stayed deeply, and of the new life that saved me when I felt most alone. It is a long story, a slow one, but it is mine, and it has shaped every part of who I am. I grew up in a small apartment that overlooked the river. The building was old, with cracked paint and windows that creaked when the wind pushed against them. But inside, it was warm. My grandmother and I shared that home, just the two of us, ever since the day my parents died when I was 7. I remember them only in small flashes, a warm hand holding mine, the smell of my mother's perfume, my father's laugh when he lifted me high in the air. After the accident, those memories became delicate treasures I kept deep inside me, while my grandmother became both mother and father to me. She was a quiet woman with silver hair pinned neatly at the back of her head, a woman who believed in simple joys, flowers in a jar, warm tea on cold days, and kind words spoken softly. She taught me that strength does not always look loud or fierce. Sometimes it looks like holding on gently when life tries to pull you apart. As I grew older, I learned to take comfort in ordinary things. I loved watching the river move under the bridge, loved the smell of bread from the bakery downstairs, loved arranging flowers in the little shop where I worked. I liked the way petals felt beneath my fingertips, soft and alive. My days were simple, but they were peaceful. I never expected my life to change. I never expected someone to enter it in such a quiet, unexpected way. It was a rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky hangs low and gray, and every step feels heavier than usual. I was carrying a paper bag filled with fruit and bread for my grandmother when the bottom of the bag tore open. Oranges rolled across the wet sidewalk, bouncing and spinning away from me. I knelt down quickly, frustrated, embarrassed, and a little overwhelmed. Rain dripped from my hair into my eyes, and I felt foolish crouching there in the storm, trying to gather bright orange fruit from the cold pavement. Then another hand reached toward the same orange I was reaching for. Our fingers brushed lightly. I looked up and saw him, Thomas. He held a black umbrella, but the wind pushed the rain sideways, soaking him anyway. His hair clung to his forehead, and his eyes were warm and apologetic. "I'm sorry," he said, though it was I who had bumped into him. There was something gentle in the way he spoke, something soft in his expression. He helped me gather the oranges with slow, careful movements, as if each one mattered. When we stood up, he offered to walk me to my grandmother's building. I hesitated at first, but something about him felt safe, like a quiet breath after a long day. So I said yes. We walked together, sharing small comments about the weather, the city, the stubborn wind. When we reached the entrance, he paused as if wanting to say more, but instead, he smiled, a shy, sincere smile that warmed the gray afternoon, and walked away. I watched him until he disappeared around the corner, not knowing that this brief meeting would shape the rest of my life. A few days later, I returned to the flower shop where I worked. It was a peaceful place with wooden shelves, soft music, and flowers in every color. But something new began to happen, something small, almost amusing. I noticed a man standing across the street, pretending to look at the clothing shop window, but always glancing toward my shop. It was Thomas. At first, I wasn't sure if it was him, but the next day he returned, and the day after that. Each time his eyes found mine, he smiled with that same shy warmth. One afternoon, as I stepped outside to shake a rug, our eyes met again. I laughed and said, "You're the umbrella man." His smile widened, and he walked toward me with a kind of hopeful awkwardness that made my heart flutter. After a moment of shy conversation, he asked if I would like to have coffee with him. I said yes without thinking. Something about him felt right, as if we had known each other in some quiet way before. We met at a small cafe near the river. The tables were old and scratched, and the clock ticked loudly on the wall. But none of that mattered. We spoke about our childhoods, our jobs, our hopes, our fears. When I told him about losing my parents, he listened with real tenderness, not the polite attention people sometimes give. When he spoke about feeling lost in his office job, I understood him deeply. There was something fragile in him, something sincere. I felt drawn to him, not quickly, but slowly, like a flower turning toward sunlight. In the weeks that followed, we became an important part of each other's days. We met after work to walk through the park, even when the air was cold and our hands grew numb. Sometimes he brought pastries from the bakery downstairs. Sometimes I brought flowers that were slightly wilted, but still beautiful. We cooked small dinners in my tiny kitchen, trying new recipes and laughing when things went wrong. My grandmother welcomed him with quiet smiles, telling him stories about the river and the neighborhood. She saw how my eyes softened when I looked at him, and she saw the way he stood, a little taller when I said his name. I loved the quiet comfort of being with Thomas. I loved the way he held my hand like it was something precious. But I also sensed a shadow inside him, an old fear that he tried to hide. Whenever I mentioned the future, even in a simple way, he grew quiet. He looked down, thinking long thoughts he wouldn't say aloud. I tried to ignore it, believing that love itself could ease his fears. Then came the morning that changed everything. It was early, still dark outside. My grandmother slept softly in her room. I sat at our small kitchen table, holding a pregnancy test in my trembling hands. The faint pink line appeared slowly, almost shyly. My breath caught. My heart beat hard in my chest. Pregnant. The word felt heavy and miraculous at the same time. My hand drifted to my stomach. I felt nothing different physically, but everything inside me had changed. I cried, not only from fear, but from wonder. A new life had begun inside me. A life made from love. A life that was already becoming something precious. But then I thought of Thomas. His hesitations, his shadows, his soft, fearful eyes when anything touched the topic of responsibility. I feared what this news would mean to him. Would he stay? Would he panic? Would he run? I kept the secret for 2 days. During those days, I touched my stomach often, as if trying to make the invisible life real. I imagined tiny fingers, tiny feet. I imagined Thomas's reaction, trying to hope for the best while fearing the worst. Finally, I sent him a message. "Can you meet me in the park? I need to talk to you." He arrived just before sunset. The sky was soft gold. The wind carried the smell of cold earth. He sat beside me, his hands in his coat pockets, waiting quietly for me to speak. I whispered the words, "Thomas, I am pregnant." His face changed slowly, painfully. First confusion, then shock. Then a fear so deep it made him look like a different man. He looked away, rubbing his hands together. He breathed quickly. I placed my hand gently on my stomach and whispered, "I already feel something. I already love the child." He shook his head, unable to speak at first. Then, in a trembling voice, he said, I don't know how to, I'm not ready." His eyes avoided mine. His shoulders hunched in a way that told me he was shutting down inside. I reached for his hand, but he pulled back ever so slightly. And then, he stood. I watched him rise from the bench as if lifted by fear itself. His eyes glistened, but he did not stay. He stepped back. Then he stepped farther. "I need time," he whispered, though it sounded like he was already leaving. And he did. He turned. He walked away through the trees. He did not look back. Every step he took felt like something inside me, breaking slowly, painfully, quietly. I sat on the bench long after he disappeared. I pressed both hands over my stomach, feeling the small life inside me that he could not face. I whispered, "I'm here. I won't leave you." The months that followed were long and heavy. I worked every day at the flower shop, arranging roses and lilies while my heart ached. I grew larger, heavier, more tired. Customers noticed my belly and smiled. But inside, I felt the empty space where Thomas used to be. My grandmother was my strength. She held my hand at every appointment, made soup when I was nauseous, and told me every night, "You are not alone." My daughter grew strong. I felt her kicks. Small at first, then firmer, like gentle knocks reminding me she was real and waiting. Those movements lifted me during the hardest moments. I spoke to her softly at night, promising love, promising safety, promising that even though her father could not stay, she would have everything I could give her. When she was born, the world changed again. She arrived on a quiet spring morning, her cry soft and uncertain. The nurse placed her in my arms, and I felt a warmth unlike anything I had known. She had Thomas's dark eyes, but her expression was gentle like mine. I named her Lily, for the peaceful white flowers that filled my childhood. Holding her, I understood a truth that healed me deeply. Love had not left me. Love had simply changed shape. Now, when I watch Lily sleeping, her small hand curled near her cheek, I feel full, not broken. Thomas lives only in soft memories now, not sharp ones. I hope he finds peace, but I no longer need him for my own. I am stronger than I ever knew. My daughter is my quiet miracle. My grandmother is my anchor. My life, once shattered, is whole again, just in a different way. Of course, I will continue the same story in Elena's voice, same tone, same A1, A2 simple English, same slow, emotional, classic style. But I will extend it greatly, making it much longer and deepening every part of her life, her thoughts, her memories, her pregnancy, her heartbreak, and her growth. I will not restart the story. I will expand it, flowing naturally, keeping the same feeling and the same gentle narration. Here is the extended, much longer continuation, written to bring the entire piece into 20+ minutes of soft, emotional storytelling. Extended long version, continuing the same story. After Lily was born, life settled into a slow, quiet rhythm that felt both new and familiar. I learned the sounds of her breathing, the way her tiny fingers curled around mine, the soft cries she made when she dreamed. At night, when the apartment was dark except for the small lamp beside my bed, I would sit with her pressed against my chest and rock her gently back and forth. Sometimes she slept peacefully. Sometimes she fussed and moved. But always I felt a deep sense of awe. I often whispered to her, "You changed everything, little one. You gave me strength I did not know I had." My grandmother adored her. She sat beside the cradle for long moments, her wrinkled hand resting on the soft blanket. "She is a quiet blessing," she would say, "a gift that came to heal what was broken." I believed her. Lily's presence filled the small apartment with something warm and alive, something that pushed away shadows that had lingered far too long. But healing is a slow process, like winter turning into spring. Some days were peaceful and hopeful. Other days were heavy with memories I tried not to revisit. There were mornings when I woke before dawn, my body tired, my eyes aching from lack of sleep. I would sit at the kitchen table, holding a cup of warm tea, watching Lily in her cradle, and feel the quiet weight of the past press gently on my heart. Even though I did not want to think about Thomas anymore, sometimes his face would come back to me. His soft smile, his warm eyes, the way he held my hand in the early days of our love. I wondered if he ever thought of me, if he ever thought of Lily, if he regretted leaving, or if he tried to forget us completely. I wondered if he walked past the park where we last spoke and felt even a small echo of that moment. These thoughts came like soft waves, not violent but steady, reminding me of what once was. Yet each time I lifted Lily into my arms, each time she looked at me with her dark eyes, his eyes, I felt a quiet truth. Even though Thomas left, the love I carried did not disappear. It simply changed its direction. I gave it to my daughter instead. Life slowly reordered itself around taking care of Lily. My grandmother and I fell into a gentle routine. I returned to the flower shop a few months after the birth, working shorter hours at first. I wore Lily in a soft cloth wrap against my chest, and many customers smiled when they saw her tiny head peeking out. Some of them congratulated me warmly, unaware of the story behind her birth. Others asked gentle questions, and I answered only what I wished. I protected the truth carefully, the way one protects a tender seedling from a harsh wind. The flower shop itself became a place of healing. The scent of fresh blossoms filled the air, roses, lilies, daisies, tulips, and touching them soothed me. I often stood at the counter with Lily sleeping against me as I trimmed stems, wrapped bouquets, and greeted customers. Flowers, I realized, are like emotions, delicate, bright, fleeting, and in need of care. Working with them reminded me that beauty can grow even in small, quiet spaces. My grandmother stayed at home more often now, her steps slower, her breath shorter. I worried about her, but she smiled whenever I expressed concern. "I have lived a long life, my dear," she would say, "and nothing gives me more peace than seeing you and Lily together." Her eyes softened when she held Lily, as if holding her brought back memories from decades ago, memories of raising me with patience and love. One evening, as I rocked Lily to sleep, my grandmother sat beside me and placed her hand gently on my arm. "You are stronger than you think," she whispered. "You walked through sorrow and came out holding joy." Her words warmed me deeply, but they also stirred another thought, one I had pushed away many times. What if Thomas never returned? What if he lived his whole life not knowing Lily? And what if Lily grew up never knowing her father? The thought hurt, but only softly now. It had begun to hurt less with time, like a bruise that fades day by day. I realized something important. I did not need Thomas anymore. Not for myself, not even for Lily. I wanted love, yes, but I no longer wanted the love of someone who could walk away from me so easily. I wanted a love that stayed. Still, healing does not mean forgetting. There were evenings when I walked by the river with Lily wrapped against my chest, watching the water shimmer under the fading sun. Those were the times memories returned in the gentlest way. I remembered the first time Thomas and I walked by this same river, the way he laughed softly and squeezed my hand. I remembered the color of the sky that day. I remembered the peaceful hope I felt, the belief that our lives were slowly intertwining into something lasting. But life does not always follow the lines we imagine. Sometimes it breaks them and asks us to draw new ones. As Lily grew, so did I. She learned to smile first, then to hold my finger, then to recognize my face the moment she opened her eyes after sleep. Each new thing she did felt like a tiny miracle. It amazed me how someone so small could fill my entire world with meaning. I spent long afternoons sitting near the window with her on my lap, watching the street below. I told her stories from my childhood, about my grandmother, about the river, about the flower shop. I told her everything except the story of her father. That story I knew would come later when she was ready to hear it. For now, I gave her the love that flowed freely from the deepest part of my heart. Sometimes, as dusk settled outside and Lily slept soundly in her crib, I would sit at my grandmother's old table and look through the window at the life around me. People walked past with purpose. Children laughed as they chased one another. Lights flickered on in windows across the street. The world continued, moving slowly, gently, while I found my place in it again. I often wondered if Thomas ever walked these same streets, if he ever looked toward the flower shop, if he ever paused by the river and remembered the day we sat on its bank and shared our dreams. Perhaps he remembered me sometimes. Or perhaps he did everything he could to forget. But I learned not to let those thoughts guide my steps anymore. My life had changed direction, just as rivers sometimes shift their paths when stones fall into their flow. Love had once filled my heart in one way, and now it filled it in another. A year passed this way, full of tiny joys, quiet struggles, and slow healing. Lily grew into a lively toddler with dark hair and curious eyes. She laughed often, a bright, gentle laugh that filled the apartment with warmth. My grandmother grew weaker, and I cherished every moment with her. She often said that Lily brought light into her last years, and I believe that was true. Then one spring afternoon, something unexpected happened. I was closing the flower shop for the day when the bell above the door chimed softly. I turned, expecting a customer who had forgotten something. But it wasn't a customer. It was Thomas. He stood in the doorway, uncertain, almost trembling. His eyes found mine, and for a moment the world grew still. I felt Lily sleeping on my chest, her small body warm and peaceful. My heart tightened, not with hope, but with a deep, calm understanding. He stepped forward, slowly, as if afraid I might tell him to leave. "Elena," he whispered, I don't know how to begin. I stood there in silence, feeling the weight of a year settle between us like a quiet mist. He looked older, tired, worn. His eyes carried guilt, regret, fear. I was wrong, he said softly. I thought I could run from everything. From the fear, from the responsibility, even from the love. But I couldn't. I never forgot you. I never forgot that day. I never... His voice broke. I don't deserve anything from you. But I needed to see you. I needed to try. I looked at him for a long moment. Not with anger, not with longing, but with a calm he did not expect. This is Lily, I said softly. He stared at her with wide, trembling eyes. His breath caught, his face crumpled. I held Lily a little closer. He took a shaky step forward, then another. She's beautiful, he whispered. I did not reply. I simply watched him. He wiped his eyes and whispered, I'm sorry, Elena. I'm so sorry. For the first time since he left, I felt no pain hearing his voice. No sharpness, no ache, only understanding. Because life had changed me. Motherhood had changed me. Time had changed me. He stood there waiting for something. Maybe forgiveness, maybe hope, maybe a small piece of the love we once shared. After a long, quiet moment, I said gently, I forgave you long ago. But my life has moved forward. His shoulders sagged, but he nodded slowly, accepting the truth in my voice. He asked if he could see Lily again someday. I told him yes, because Lily deserved to know where she came from. Because forgiveness, when it is real, makes space for peace. Not for old love to return, but for new understanding to grow. He left the shop with slow steps, and I watched him disappear into the soft evening light. There was no anger left in me, only calm. When I locked the shop and walked home with Lily sleeping peacefully against me, I felt something settle inside me completely, something quiet and warm. My story had not ended with heartbreak. It had not ended with a man leaving. It had not ended with fear. My story had continued, with growth, with strength, with new love, with new beginnings. And as I climbed the stairs to our small apartment, where my grandmother waited with warm tea and gentle eyes, I understood the truth of my life. Love does not always stay in the shape we expect. Sometimes it breaks, so that something stronger and softer can grow in its place. This is my story, long, quiet, emotional, and alive. And it will continue day by day as Lily and I walk forward into our own gentle future.